Thank you everyone for being here tonight to celebrate and remember the life of our beloved father, thank you, Rabbi Abi Wahrhaftig. Before I begin my remarks, I want to take a moment to thank all of the people who helped make this night possible. Firstly, I want to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who listens to all of our tefillot and blesses us with the wisdom and ability to accomplish everything that we set out to do. To our beloved Rav and his Eshes Chayil, Rav Shlomo and Bina, for their unwavering dedication to our community and for guiding us in fulfilling our mission as the generation that's ushering in the Geula. Amen. Thank you to all of our friends, family members, as well as all the students and campers who contributed to funding this project. Your contributions were such a beautiful tribute to our father. A special appreciation goes to Michal and Yodi Reinitz, who serve as an extraordinary and highly competent team, tirelessly working on behalf of our entire shul, often going above and beyond what we even realize. May Hashem bless Yodi and Michal abundantly for all of their incredible contributions to our kehillah. I also want to thank the entire Shirat David Vad, who dedicate all of their time and efforts to manage both technical and big picture goals on behalf of our entire kehillah. A separate thanks for letting Avi take a retirement.
Temporary.
I'm particularly grateful to Dov Kram, whose personal dedication and efforts ensured that the garden would be ready on time for my father's yurt site this year, even under a tight deadline. Dov holds a special connection to our family as one of the few people in our community who shared a close and personal relationship with my father. At this point, I will ask everyone to turn off their cell phones. Thank you. I will leave it to Dov to share that with you in a few minutes, but I'm deeply honored to have received all of his invaluable assistance in bringing this event together, so thank you, Dov. I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Rabbi Eli Michel, who graciously agreed to give one more Monday night shiur before embarking on a very well-deserved summer vacation. Your eagerness to participate in this dedication and your kind generosity are truly appreciated. I'm also deeply grateful for your patient ear as you listened attentively to my passionate explanation about why this project holds such immense significance for me. I would also like to express my profound appreciation to my mother, Joyce Wahrhaftig, who dropped everything upon hearing about tonight's event. Despite the personal work days that she had to sacrifice and the long and arduous flight that she had to endure, she didn't hesitate for one moment. It was clear how much you desire to be here for this special occasion, and I'm so happy that you can be here with us.
Me too.
To my amazing children, Abi, Sophie, Sam, and Annie, you guys are the ultimate icing on the cake. You prove to us every day that we're succeeding at carrying out your Abi's legacy. My father, when he became a grandfather, everybody gets to choose what they want to be called. My mom went with the non-traditional granny, and my father thought long and hard about what he wanted to be called, and he came up with Abi. He said, Ha'aba Sheli, so everyone called him Abi. You each provide us with nachas in your own individual ways, and we're so thankful to Hashem for each of you, and so thankful for the beautiful relationship that you share with each other.
Aww.
And now a special thank you to my husband, Avi.
Come on, everybody.
It's an interactive event. And thank you to my mother-in-law. always While preparing the slideshow, the matzeget for this evening, I came across a beautiful picture of my father kissing Avi under our chuppah, and it brought me immense comfort. I'm going to need tissues shortly.
I got them right there.
Okay. Avi, we were incredibly fortunate to have my father as our Masader Kedushin. guiding us into our married life together. I'm grateful for the precious time that Hashem allowed you to spend with him. Thank you for always supporting and encouraging me to find unique and meaningful ways to honor Abba each year. I'm so grateful for your unwavering dedication and hard work, both physically and mentally, in preparing for tonight's program. Despite having only a little over a year to get to know him, the respect and devotion that you continue to show our Abba is truly remarkable. So thank you. Okay. And that's it for thank yous. Okay. And thank you to everyone who drove from near and far. That's on us. Thank you to the Miller family. A special thank you to the Miller family for making Aliyah when we didn't expect that. That was a really big added bonus. Thank you. Okay. Well, tonight marks 18 years since my father was nifter. His memory still shines brightly in our hearts. Tonight, I want to share with you briefly some stories and anecdotes that reflect the incredible person that he was. A man of wisdom, warmth, and an infectious, childlike sense of wonder and love for his fellow man. And I want to explain why we chose a garden as the place that most suited to honor his legacy. My father was the oldest of two boys, born to parents who had escaped the horrors of the Holocaust on a boat to Cuba. Growing up in Washington Heights, from a very young age, he had a deep love of Torah and learning. He cherished his elementary school Rebbe, and for years to come would make it a point to call him annually before Rosh Hashanah, showing his unwavering respect and dedication. As an educator, my father touched the lives of countless students. He started his teaching career working at a Hebrew school, where he taught public school students about their Masorah. From there, he continued to serve as a teacher and eventually found his home at the Yeshiva of Flatbush, where he not only taught but also served as a compassionate guidance counselor for over 20 years. For over 3 decades, he spent his summers at Camp Morashah, where he began as a division head, then worked his way up to assistant director, and eventually became the beloved camp director. In the last year of his life, he served as the principal of the Kushner High School. I was trying to think of a very cool gematria, if someone can maybe help me. So Abba died at the age of 59, correct? Which is Nun Tet, right? And planting is Nata. I'm trying to think about where the ayin comes into play. So bonus points.
He always had an ayin toe.
Thank you to our winners. You can. Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. But beyond his professional accomplishments, my father was an extraordinary father. Despite juggling multiple jobs and responsibilities, he always made us feel like we were his top priority. And he had this magical way of making each one of us feel like we were his favorites. I remember late nights where he would sit beside us on the couch playing Super Mario Brothers, just as engaged and enthusiastic as we were. He had an incredible gift for making us feel cherished and valued. One of the qualities that truly set my father apart was his ability to see the good in everyone, his ayin tov. We didn't practice this before. He had a heart like that of a Berditchever chassid, always seeking the best in people. I recall a particular incident at camp when a new young boys' head counselor missed the first Shabbos morning davening of the summer. I expected someone to yell at him, but instead my father chose a different path. When we got to Shabbos lunch, my father stood up, extended his hand, and greeted the young man with a warm smile. He asked him unknowingly, he had davened in another minyan, and he said in front of all the senior staff members, "So, what did you think of your first Shabbos morning davening at camp?" The young counselor hesitated, admitting sheepishly that he had overslept and missed davening. I braced myself, thinking, oh boy, now he's going to get it. But my father, without missing a beat, responded, "Well, you know what that means. You must have really needed to catch up on your sleep." In that one moment, my father taught me a valuable lesson. He wiped the smugness off my face and reminded me of the importance of kindness and understanding. He saw beyond the surface, and he chose to uplift others instead of tearing them down. It was a lesson in compassion and empathy that I carry with me to this day. My father was a man of boundless love, a true mentor, and a wonderful father. Today, as we remember him, let us honor his memory by embracing his teachings. Let us strive to see the good in everyone that we meet, just as he did. And let us carry forward his legacy of warmth, wisdom, and laughter. Together with my siblings and my mother, our family is honored to dedicate this beautiful garden on his 18th yahrzeit. And Avi reminded me that we were going to order furniture so that people can learn outside in the, yes? Anything else? Okay. It's like in stages. Kima. Okay. As we all know, the number 18 represents Chai, which holds great significance in Judaism. It symbolizes that my father's legacy will continue to thrive and flourish through his children, his grandchildren, and this very special community, which is settling its roots here in Eretz Yisrael. There's an additional element to this event that adds a truly remarkable and captivating layer to the fulfillment of this dedication. I recently learned from our dear friend Esti Golovensis how we each have a deep and mystical connection to the weekly parsha that fell out on the week that we were born. As Hashgacha would have it, I was born during the week of Parshat Vayechi. While I've often dreamed about the fantasy of having been able, and I'm sure many people who have lost their parents can relate, I've dreamt about the fantasy of having my parents settling here beside us in Israel. But I understand that remains a fantasy. Being the pragmatic thinker that I am, I then fantasize about having my father's remains brought over to be buried here in Israel. But that too remains an improbability due to the various technical and financial and shalom bayit factors involved. So I too came to accept that this was just wishful thinking. However, when I discovered the significance of my personal connection to my birthday parsha, Vayechi, I became intrigued, particularly because Esti told me that there was a secondary element. Apparently, what is deeply connected to the Aliyah corresponding to the weekday upon which they were born. The plot thickened. Being born on Erev Shabbat, I eagerly ran to get a chumash to see what mystical messages were held in Shishi, the sixth Aliyah. I didn't have to search far, as Abi was sitting at the Shabbos table preparing his laning for Shabbos. Excitedly, I shared with him what Esti had just told me, and like a kid waiting eagerly to tear open her birthday presents, I asked him, "What happens in Shishi?" To my astonishment, Abi explained that Shishi focuses on Yosef's fulfillment of his promise to bring his father's bones to be buried in Israel. The magnitude of this revelation sent chills down my spine, both then and even now as I recount the story. It was as if Hashem was reaffirming the profound connection that I am zocha to have on behalf of my family by helping my father plant roots here in Eretz Yisrael. As we gather tonight in this serene space, I want to dedicate this garden as a special nachala. It is our hope that it becomes a place of gathering where meaningful conversations and learning at the future furniture will be shared between family members and friends. A place where the teachings of Torah resonate and where the lessons that my father taught us and the values he instilled within our family take growth. May it be a sanctuary of growth, reflection, and connection to our roots. And may his memory continue to inspire generations to come. Thank you everyone for joining us. I would like to call upon my children to go with Uncle Yudi. Here. And we are going to activate the fountain.
Oh, it's that one.
Yeah. Apparently the switch is on the inside. And then I would be honored if Rav Shlomo can honor us with some divrei bracha afterwards. Rav Shlomo, we'd be honored. round of applause for Rabbi Wahrhaftig's grandchildren.
Right, B'shut Mishpachat Miller, Mrs. Wahrhaftig, the extended family, all of us here. Yishakach to everyone for coming. It's very emotional. This is very, very emotional because remember those moments when we were so involved with allowing ourselves to dream and come here with shovels. We're literally where we're standing right now. I'm sure some, do you guys have shovels? Yeah, you got a shovel, right? Like literally right here, we were with shovels just a few years ago. And I got I got interviewed by a very, very khalifa interviewee, Sophie. The interview of all interviews, as we prepared for moments like this. And then boom, it's like it's right here. So it's just, I want to say thank you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for allowing us to dream and allowing the dreams to also come into fruition. It's a big, big thing. It's something very, very, very la'inyan, because you brought it up, and I think it's very important to realize that the word in Hebrew for bones is the same meaning as the word essence. Nachon, the atzamot, the essence. And having your Abba's zecher out here is mamash having the essence of who your Abba was and continues to be on the level of neshama. Just talking to my Abba today about your Abba, or yesterday when I saw my father, right away, all these memories popped up with my father, the years that they were together in Flatbush. That's true to any person that I've come across that have spoken to me about your father throughout all these years. Now, although many of us did not go to Flatbush or to Morashah the years that he was there, for those of us that feel like we're really living our lives here, in the greatest potential, we've been growing up with your Abba every year, not just on Sivan. We've been growing up with your Abba, we've been growing up with the etzem of your Abba, with the essence of who your Abba is. Having his grandson blasting, his namesake blasting his voice while reading the word of Hashem, Shabbos after Shabbos, or while just how we have all been such amazing beneficiaries of all the values and the midot that he instilled within you and the rest of your children, the rest of your siblings and your grandchildren. So I just give us all a bracha to reconnect ourselves every Sivan, especially now. But every time someone walks out here, they become more and more attached to the etzem of who your Abba really is. May he be a melitz yosher on all of us here, and all of Am Yisrael, B'ezrat Hashem, to be connected to the etzem of life, to what's important about life. And what's not important about life, what's not the etzem, like we were reminded a few months ago by Leo, what's not really that important, to just not hold on to. And here at Tzom B'ezrat Hashem, Tehen Yishmatot Tzorah B'tzorah Chaim. What a zchut it is to be part of this evening tonight.
Thank you so much, Rosh Shlomo. I'd like to call upon Dov Kram to say a few words.
First of all, it's a tremendous honor to be asked to speak tonight. Thank you, Yael, and I acknowledge also Joyce's presence. It was very special to get to spend Shabbos dinner together, and any time we have together is always very special. So thinking about what I wanted to share, and I'll keep it brief, I have to, of course, replay how I know A.B., Yael's father, Oel Shalom, and how I got to know him. So I think I must have met him at age 9, because that's when I came to camp as a younger Nitzi. But I really, and I was very close with Yael. I still am close with Yael's older brother, Ya. And so through him, I'm sure that we got together. But I really got to know him probably around age 15. So I was not the easiest kid. Some of you are probably not at all surprised to hear that. And those of you who are don't know me at all. But as a camper, I really did not cause a lot of trouble. But when I became a CIT, So I'm going to be very careful because I don't want to implicate anybody, and I don't know if the statute of limitations has run out yet. But let's just say there were a lot of things that happened in camp the year that I was a CIT that AB somehow knew I was partly responsible for, along with a few others, including Yak. Sorry, Joyce, I'm revealing a little bit of that here. I apologize. It was all my fault. I put him up to it. And so I think that the typical response from somebody in AB's position as the director and somebody who has a position in a position of authority is to try to, straighten the person out by giving them detention or kicking them out of camp or getting them in trouble. And that was my experience certainly in the other times that I encountered authority figures having caused some trouble. But AB's response was completely different. First of all, he couldn't actually pin anything on me, so I give myself a little bit of credit there, but he knew it was me for sure. And so I started thinking about all the crazy things that we did, and I think that, I don't know, because I never had this conversation with AB or Hashem, but we pulled this one prank, and I'm going to admit to this one prank in front of all of you, and I think you'll appreciate why I'm telling you the story. We stole the head girls counselor's golf cart in the middle of the night, and we took it away and we replaced it with parts of a golf cart, so it looked like we had dismantled her golf cart. And so in the morning, people came out and found the golf cart, and of course, the first thing that, once AB was contacted, he called me and Yak and a few others to the office, and like AB, he stayed totally calm, which was both amazing but terrifying at the same time. And he just said, okay guys, nobody saw who did this, but you're the ones who are responsible, not that we were the ones who did it, but you're the ones responsible for gathering all the parts and putting the golf cart back together and getting it back in front of Ruchi's bunk by 2 p.m. So what did we do? We went and we gathered all the parts, just like AB asked. And then we went on to play basketball right in front of his office for the whole day until 1:55. And every hour or so he'd come out and he'd remind us of the punishment. And at 1:59 we went and we retrieved the golf cart, which was intact from the beginning, and we drove it back. It was amazing. What a miracle. How did he put it together in 1 minute? So I don't know, AB maybe saw the humor in that. He certainly didn't let on that he saw the humor in that. That was good because he was the director. But he called me in sometime later in that summer as a CIT, and he offered me this crazy job with incredible amounts of responsibility and autonomy, access to the whole camp, the keys to his office and the canteen. I mean, he just gave me the keys to the camp and basically made me an unofficial assistant of his in a lot of ways. And we became very close, and I used to go into his office and we'd sit and talk and strategize how to take care of the camp. So really there are a number of people certainly that I credit for putting me back or putting me on the right path in my life as an impressionable teenager. I was, I think, turning 16. But AB was one of the most instrumental of those people, and it was because of his response. Instead of coming and trying to set me straight using force, he literally just gave me this giant hug and called me in and basically redirected the skills that he saw that I had, and we made a lot of amazing things happen as when I was on staff, if I don't say so myself. And I really think that encompasses for me AB's essence. He saw everybody for who they were. It was like the story you told about the counselor who missed davening. He didn't embarrass him. He acknowledged, like, okay, you must have needed your sleep. I felt like he was saying the same thing to me, but in a very different way. And I know I wasn't alone, and we heard about one other. So I think of him very fondly. As things happened, I was living in Boston already when he was nifter, but I was scheduled to be in New York for a wedding the day of his levaya. So I was also zocha to get his levaya and then visit a friend who had just had a baby, Zach Shanker, had a baby, and then go to this wedding. So even in AB's death, he put me, somehow I ended up in this circle of life experience, which is very much how he still is for me today, still in this life, just in a very different way. And there are very few very few friendships that I have where I'm equally friends with the son and the father. And Avi is on that very short list for me of people, and it's because of how special he was. And I'm going to always carry his memory and the inspiration that he instilled in me in the way that he saw me and responded to what I did and who I was. So his memory should be a fair blessing.
Thank you so much, Dov. As my mother just remarked, my father had excellent taste. So if he chose you, then it definitely was no coincidence. I want to call upon Rabbi Eli Michel. Thank you so much. Can we help you by giving out source sheets?
Thank you.
Okay. This is the last Monday evening shir
For
of
a couple months.
Touch Shin Pei Gimel. But hopefully we'll be coming back in the new season.
No problem. It's really an honor to be here in this beautiful outdoor learning pavilion. The best breeze in the world, a fraught summer breeze. It's amazing. Oh, never want to leave this place. And of course, all of our learning is the Ilui Nishmas with Avram and Zev Yehuda Zechrono Livracha. Shama should have an aliyah. So the day that Yael and I spoke about giving the shir happens to be that very day I read a speech by Rav Aviner from when the community in Beit El was dedicating their new shul. And I had just read this right before I spoke to Yael. And he said as follows at his speech. He said, Batei Knesset shebechutz la'aretz b'nuyim al tanan. He said that the shuls that are built in exile are built on condition, right? That they could potentially be used for other things because they're not permanent. Ki kasher takum ha'uma l'tchiyah, because when the nation will come back to life, tifka kedushatam, their kedusha will leave, and they'll pick up and they'll come to Eretz Yisrael, these shuls. They're not permanent, they're not forever. Aval batei knesset shebe Eretz Yisrael kayamim leolam. A shul here in Eretz Yisrael is forever. And he says, Beit HaKnesset hazeh nimtza po lanetzach. And this shul will be eternal. And as we're dedicating this beautiful pavilion here, thank you so much. As we're dedicating this beautiful pavilion here in Eretz Yisrael, just to point out, and I know it took a while, it's been 18 years, but it was worth the wait, because it was meant to be here in this place, in this time, Lanetzach, forever, for eternity, this unbelievable, beautiful shul that this community has built. And it's particularly appropriate to dedicate a space of learning for schwitzy guys like me, outside in a beautiful breeze. But really, in memory of your father, who was such an extraordinary educator, dedicating his life to teaching Torah. And so all the Torah that's learned here should be a tremendous, tremendous merit for him and for the entire family. And we all know that Kaddish is so important. And we don't have to say these words. We all know that Kaddish has a mystique. Kaddish can bring the most apathetic Jews off of their couches and bring them into shul. Like, they didn't know we had services on a Monday. Who knew, right? 60 years, they didn't know until I lost a parent. And then he come to shul and it can reconnect the Jew. Such beautiful stories, like the first one that I brought here from the author of the Kilas Yaakov, of Yaakov Yosef Halevi. And it's a story where it's about a certain Avreich who sadly passed away young, and he had a young child that he left behind who was only 5 years old. And the 5-year-old child was embarrassed to say Kaddish for his father. It says, right? They so desperately wanted this little boy to come and say Kaddish, but he was so embarrassed, right? Anyone who has a little boy understands, right? I know, I remember running out of several birthday parties when I was 5 years old because I was too embarrassed for some reason to be there. You're 5 years old, you're embarrassed. And they couldn't get him to come and say Kaddish. And they so desperately, imagine the pain of the mother. So Hitchil Rabbeinu, so they brought in the Rav Yaakov Yosef Halevi to come to speak to this child with warmth, and he said to him, Avicha nimtza be'olam ha'emet, your father is in the world of truth. Ein sham davar shaveh sheshavelo, nothing there means anything to him. If you give him money, if you give him gold, silver, right, it's worthless. He doesn't care. Right, nothing matters to him. Right, rak hakadish tatomer alav. Only the kaddish that you will say for him. Right, that's all that he cares about. Right, I tell you, do you have any idea how much he's waiting for your beautiful kaddish? And in this way, he was able to bring the child to come and to say the words of the kaddish in memory of his father. It's beautiful. But everything I want to say here tonight is not to say, God forbid, that Rav Yaakov Yosef Halevi is wrong, but the truth is, it's really not just about Kaddish. Because it's what happens when Kaddish is over. There are many people who struggle to say Kaddish. It's very hard, certainly for women, if they still have young children at home, to get out and to say Kaddish. And Kaddish only lasts a short amount of time, and then it's once a year, it's on a yard site. So what is that, it? There's nothing else to do. My responsibility as a child is complete. God forbid. God forbid. So I want to thank you for because of our conversation and what we had spoken about. It kind of brought me on this journey to explore a topic I really didn't know. To learn about how it is that we can honor parents, not just in this world, but also in the next world. And in many ways, that honoring, that kavod that we can give them in the years, not just the first years, but in the many years that follow, can be even greater than the kavod that we can give them in our lifetime, and in their lifetime. Now, the Gemara tells us a list of evil people in history who have no portion in the next world. Okay, this is the Gemara in Sanhedrin number 2. But there are certain bad guys who are left off the list. They really should be on that list. They should have no Olam Haba. They were bad. But they're not on that list. They do have Olam Haba. Why? So what's this about? So says the Gemara. So here, if you look, I put it on the side just to see the order of the kings. Right? Chizkiah, who was a great tzaddik, his son is Menashe, not so much. And then Ammon, not so much. But then Yoshiyahu, he was pretty impressive. Okay, so we had ups and downs with our kings. So the Gemara asks, Mipnei malo manu et Ammon. Why was Ammon not included on the list of people who do not have Olam Haba? So it says, Mipnei kvodo shel Yoshiyahu. Right, because of the greatness and in honor of his son, Yoshiyahu, Ammon, right, has a chelik in Olam Haba. He has a portion in the next world. Now, Menashe nami lo nimni. Right, so what's going on here, right? So Mipnei kvodo shel Chizkiyahu. So then Menashe should also not be on that list, but Menashe is on the list of people who don't have Olam Haba, right? But Menashe is the son of Chizkiyahu. Chizkiyahu was this close to being the Mashiach, and so you would think because of his father, he shouldn't be on this list. So says the Gemara, Bra mizaki Abba, Abba lo mizaki Bra. And the Gemara says that a son can can give merit to the father, but a father cannot give merit to the son. Right? Dichtiv ve'eni adi matzil, it's a pasuk in Devarim. Right, there's no one that can deliver out of my hand. Right, Ein Abraham matzilat Ishmael, Ein Yitzchak matzilat Esav. Right, Abraham can't save his son Yishmael. Yitzchak can't save his son Esav. Right, that doesn't work because that's a parent. They can't do that for the child. Only a child can come and save a parent, even from Gehenna, even from the worst of places. So, is that really possible? Right, it seems very strange when you think about this. Right, that the merits of a child can somehow be transferred to a parent. What does that mean? Right, how does that work? Right, each of us should be judged individually for who we are. Right, don't we believe in reward and punishment? Like, If I do good, I get rewarded. If I do bad, I don't. I get the opposite. What does that have to do with a parent? And what does that have to do with a child? What does one have to do with anything? So we find that the Maharam El Shakar, right, he asks precisely this question. He goes through it in his Tshuva, right, where one asks him, is it possible to sell my merits to someone else, right? So if I'm short on cash, but I learn Torah at night, so can I sell my Torah learning merits for cash? Right, it's an interesting question. Is that possible? So he says, in the answer, Lo matzati makom ledavar hazeh. Right? I never saw. There's no source for such a thing. It seems crazy. Right? Ki'im b'tshuva she'ela l'Rabbeinu HaGaon. I found something in Rabbeinu HaGaon who says, "Veriti la'tikota." And I'll copy it here. He was asked, "Mishu noheg l'hitanot sheni v'chamishi." Somebody who would regularly fast on Mondays and Thursdays, u'v'sof oto hazman, amar kibol schar hatainas hazeh. Kibul schar hatainas hazeh yeh leploni matana. And then he wanted to give the merit of all of his fast days as a gift to someone else, right? Or if somebody who says macharti tainis zu hashana b'chach leploni, somebody who's not so generous and they want to sell the merit of their fast to someone else. Hayesh mizeh, right? Is that something that you could do, right? Have you given him anything, or is this all like a scam because you can't really transfer these things? And he says v'chein mishan atam ladam zahav al menat shikra haTorah. Somebody who gives money to someone else to learn Torah on their behalf. Is that possible? So he says, this is meaningless. You can't do it. But you can't imagine. It's impossible. They're saying before, this doesn't make any sense. It's impossible to sell your merits. If somebody tries to sell you, right? If somebody tries to sell you their Torah learning, right? Turn around and run. Run straight to the Beit Midrash and learn for yourself. Right? We're all responsible for our merits and for our sins. So how does this work? Right? How can this be? So in the Sefer Chasidim it says, Kach Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Bra Mizaki Abba. So there's an exception to this rule, that a child can bring merit to a parent. Kigon she'a'av chotei, v'notenet v'nolil mo Torah u'ma'asim tovim. So a father sins, but if he sends his son to learn Torah and to do good deeds, ho va'al yedei ha'av zacha haben, bra mizaka abba. Because of the father, the child became who he became and went and learned Torah and did mitzvahs. So therefore, it's part of the father's merit for himself. And if a parent commands a child to do something after they pass away, so if the child follows the father's command, right, and they did it because the father or mother told them to do so, right, that reward goes back to the father or to the mother. So according to the Sefer Chasidim, when we do mitzvahs in a parent's memory, it's not somehow that we're dedicating these mitzvahs and this reward to our parents or in their memory. It's as if our parents are doing the mitzvahs themselves, because it was because of their influence that these mitzvahs are happening. And without them, we wouldn't have this mitzvah. Now, all of this makes sense if your father is Rabbi Wahrhaftig, right? If your father is a holy person who raised you to do good and holy things. But what if one's parents are not really responsible? Right? Not that we have parents like this, but it happens in the world. If we have parents who are not responsible for our good deeds, right? There are parents like this, right? What if they weren't very good or holy people? Does it still apply? It would seem that it does. Right? Didn't we see that in the Gemara, that a Bra Mizaka is Abba, right? Even if the Abba was a pretty bad guy. So how does this make sense? How does that work? So number 5, we read about Terach. We usually skip over these psukim. I mean, you don't skip over these psukim, but the rest of us skip over. But this is the end, it's just before we get to Lech Lecha. Vayu Yimei Terach. So it was the days of Terach, were Chamesh Shanim u'Matayim Shana. He lived 205 years. Vayamat Terach b'Charan. Right. So and then Terach died in Charan. So the question here that a lot of the Mefarshim ask is that this is not when Terach died. All right, Terach did not die at this moment before Lech Lecha, before Abraham came to Eretz Yisrael, because that Lech Lecha comes right afterwards. I know, I talked to the Christians, it's Genesis 12:1, right? Genesis 12:3, right? This is before Genesis 12, right? That's their favorite pasuk. So what's going on? We know, and because Hashem says, Lech Lecha me'artzecha, and leave the house of your father. It means his father was still alive. And if you look at all the numbers, we know that Terach was, if he lived to 205, and we know how old he was when Avram was born, Terach lived for many, many more years. So why does it tell us that he died now? Right, so Rashi says, Reshayim af b'chayim kruyim mesim, that Reshayim, even in their lifetime, are called as if they're dead, right? And Tzadikim, af b'misasan, even after they die, kruyim chayim. A tzaddik is called, they're still alive. Vayichi Yaakov, right? Your parsha, Yaakov is still alive. Right? Yaakov Avinu lo meis, because Yaakov Avinu is a tzaddik. Right? So Terach, even though he was still alive, he's called as if he had passed away. Now, the Ramban he questions this whole Rashi statement, because later in the story of Abraham, right, Hashem promises Abraham that he will come to his fathers in peace. Right? Ve'ata tavo is number 7. Ve'ata tavo al avosecha b'shalom. You will come to your father in peace. Tikaver b'seiva tova. So what does that mean? Right? That means that you're going to go be with your father in the next world. But if your father was a Rasha, how could that be that you're going to go be with Terach in the next world? Avram was, of course, it was one of the great tzaddikim. So how can this be? Right? Rashi says, Avi oved avodah zara, v'hu b'basro she'yavo elav. Right? So you're telling Avram that you get to go hang out with Terach, the idol worshiper of the next world. Right? So we learn from here, she'asa Terach tshuva. We learn from here that Terach did tshuva, says Rashi. That's Rashi's answer. That's the only way to understand this, that Terach must have done tshuva before he passed away. But the Ramban is not satisfied with that answer. The Ramban says as follows. He says, O Shema yesh lo chelek le'olam haba. Perhaps Terach never did tshuva. But perhaps he has a portion in the next world, she'amru chazal b'schus b'no, because of the merit of his son. V'yeh b'sorah. And for this reason, Abraham didn't know. Meaning, if Abraham had seen his father do tshuva, it wouldn't have been surprised. Of course I'll be with my father in the next world. But he never saw his father do tshuva, says the Ramban. He died in sin. And it's only now Hashem is coming and telling Abraham, because of you, right, your father, right, is in a good place in the next world because of you. And you get to be together with him in the next world. This is talking about wood for the Mizbeach. You can use any wood you want for the Mizbeach, except for the wood of the olive tree and of the grape. Because the oil that comes from the olive and the grapes, right? These are through the wine. These are brought on the Mizbeach. So hitzilo hapero ta'ilanot. Right, because of the beautiful fruits, because of the oil and the wine, it saves their parents. Right, the trees themselves are saved and are not brought as firewood on the Mizbeach. Right, and so we find by Avram that he was able to save Terach. Shenemar v'ata tavo el avotecha v'shalom. You will come to your father in peace. Now, if you look at number 10, this is talking about Yizkor. It's one of the moments during the year that's most emotional for those who have lost a parent. And the Shulchan Aruch says, Na'aguli dor tzedakah b'yom kippurim bi'ad hametim. Right? Yizkor actually started only once a year on Yom Kippur, and it was expanded to the other holidays. Now it's 4 times a year. Some say it's because shuls needed money. They try not to be so cynical, but everyone knows. There's no question that Yom Kippur is really the root, and that's the next Yizkor that's coming. Yom Kippur is really the root of Yizkor. Mazkir nishmotein dehamesim, and we remember the souls of those who passed away. Gam kein yesh lehem kapara, right? And they too, right? They get kapara, they get atonement on Yom Kippur, just like we in this world get kapara. Those who passed away, for whom we say Yizkor, they also receive atonement. And says the Mishnah Berurah, That when we make a neder, right, that we're going to give tzedakah on their behalf, right, that's what we do at Yizkor. Right, gam kein tzedakah, because we're saying that, right, if my father, if my mother was still alive, right, they also would be giving tzedakah right now. And even if my father or mother was destitute and unable to give tzedakah, they would have wanted to give at this moment. Right? It says, but here it says, "Avur Rasha ein mo'il." But according to this logic, that wouldn't work, right? For a Rasha, because you can't say that my parents really would have wanted to give. They would have been outside having Kiddush club during this moment. However, but it's interesting. But if a person did vidui before their death, we can assume that they're like a tzaddik, and that they would have given. However, he says, right, at the end here, mistabra the imaben notein ba'ad aviv b'chol gavni mo'il l'hakel dino. Right, so it says the Mishnah Berurah then rejects what he just said, and says even if they weren't a good parent, even if they weren't generous, nevertheless bra mizake abba. Meaning, this is how we paskin, says the Mishnah Berurah. This is how we paskin. Right, it's not just an agadita. Right, it's not just a sweet idea that a child brings merit to a parent. It's in the Mishnah Berurah. We saw this before, but I wanted to show that this is halach. Right? A child is uniquely able to bring merit to a parent in a way that nobody else can. It's true with Kaddish, but it's true with much, much more than Kaddish, as we'll see in just a moment. In many places throughout rabbinic literature, there is a fascinating phrase that's used to describe what a child can do for a parent who has left this world. Bra kara de'avuha. The child is the legs of the parent. So what does that mean? The child is the legs of the parent. Right? Why are children considered the legs, not the hands of the parents? Right? Or not something else of the parents? What is it specifically about the legs? So there's a pasuk in Zechariah that says, it's a beautiful pasuk. V'natati lecha malchim bein ha'omdim ha'eleh. Right? I will make you someone who's walking among those who are standing. So what does this mean? So Rav Hutner, and this is maybe the most beautiful piece we'll learn tonight. I stopped. It stopped me in my tracks when I saw this piece. Rav Hutner says as follows: Bra kara de'avua, that the child is the legs of the parent. Lama dafka regel? Why specifically legs? Lama ein ben nechshav liyado shel aviv? Why not the arms or the hands? So he says, Rak b'nei adam b'hai alma nechshavim lemahalchi. It's only people in this world, in this physical world, who can be called those who are walking. Walking is movement, is getting from place A to place B. V'ilu nishamot umalachim, but people who are now souls without a body, and angels who never had a body at all, omdim heim nikra'im. They are called standing, because they're no longer in the world of challenges, of Yetzer Hara, of mitzvos, of battling and struggling, of progressing. And that they don't have mitzvahs. Right? This is the pasuk in Zechariah we just saw. When a person passes away, they are freed of mitzvahs. Right? There's no walking forward and going to a higher level without mitzvahs. You can't do it, unfortunately. There's only standing in one madrega. You're stuck on that madrega. And we know that legs are what allow us to move, to go forward. V'hainu, and this is what it means, he said, Bra kara de'avu, that the children are the legs of the parents. Klomar, that if one's father is in a place of standing, they're no longer in this world, mikol makom, nevertheless, im hiniach acharav ben hagud, if they've left behind them a good child, a good son, a good daughter, Harei haben oseh et aviv l'mahalchem. Then the child can make their parent, can enable their parent to walk again. Afilu b'makom she'ha'av mitzad atzmo hu b'matzav shel amidah. Even in a situation where, right, on his own he can't walk, but he can now. In a sense, when we're children, our parents, put us on their shoulders. But when they leave the world, we're putting them on our shoulders. Bra kara de'avuha. To me, that image, for that alone, it was worth sitting through this long shir. I'm sorry. I'll try to speed it up a little bit. For that alone. Number 14. Amar le Rav l'Rav Shmuel bar Shilat achim behespeda dehatam ka'imna. Rav said to Rav Shmuel bar Shilat, he said, when you give my hesped, be on fire. Don't give like a bland hesped. Show some energy, show some emotion, because I'll be standing there. I'll be watching. Talk about an intense command, right? Wow. So what is this? What is he saying? What does he mean here? What does he want? So he said that show a little fire, b'shat mitati, when I pass away, hita meitz behesped, right? Work hard on the hesped. Take it very seriously. Shitchamemu v'chmeru rachamei ha'omdim v'yivku. So that people should become emotional, and they should cry, that they should be impacted by the hesped, that the hesped should have an impact in this world. Right, this is what Rashi says. So says Rav Tzvi Yavrov. He says, "V'zeu maimer Rav l'Rav Shmuel bar Shilat." He said, "Achim behespedai shetechamem et leva softim behespedai sheyilmedu midarkai leilech beorchotai." Give a good hesped so that they should learn to follow in my ways, right? That they should learn from me. Right? I won't be there to teach them. You can teach them my ways. Mishum dahatam ka'imna. Because there, in the next world, hineni omeid v'lo holech. I'm standing and I'm not walking. Amnam kishitchamemu b'libam lilmod mimeni. But when you can awaken people, and it's not even just the children now, but anyone can learn from me, leilech v'darkei Hashem kol yamim, to take something with them from that hesped, to learn from it, something permanent that will have an impact upon their lives. Az af k'sheyeh ba'olam neshamot. So then, even though I will be in the world of souls, hineni holech, I will still be going. Ki pulatzit kati nimshechet beholechet metusefet tamid al yedei talmidai. Even through my students, right? My path will continue. I'll be able to continue walking. Asher kiblu darkai leilech behem tamid. I thought of this in particular. I was thinking of this source as Dov is speaking. It's children, first and foremost. Bra mezaka is Abba. But it's also students. And here we are talking about your father, some person who raised generations of students. Students in camp, which means they actually listened, maybe they learned, not just in classrooms. But also in the classroom as well. And so, I thought I'd put it here because I figured we needed this at this moment, but I read other books too. So this guy, William Ian Miller, in a book called Losing It, not so highly recommended, but I got a couple lines out of it. He said, what if 10 years after you die, it turns out that your son is a serial killer, your daughter a positive psychologist? Right, that's a joke. Right, that's a joke. Your grandchildren drug addicts and in prison. He says, you're not safe. Your virtue, your life will be reevaluated. And there's no relaxing, no satisfaction in a life once thought well lived if you have spawned a line of losers. So I say from that we learn the opposite. When you raise a family like this, what a beautiful family, children and grandchildren, your life is constantly reevaluated because you're constantly mehalech. What's true of a child is also true of a direct descendant of grandchildren as well. Right? Many, many sources on that. It was already too long. But it's 100%. A grandchild is considered like a child. And so a grandchild can say Kaddish also for a grandparent if needed in certain situations, because a grandchild is the direct line from a grandparent. You continue walking, and with all of these children really running it, that is, right, given all the mitzvahs that are happening here. Now, I want to go quickly. I know there's a lot to say here, and time it's already late, right? It's already 9:09. How long do I have? 10:30? No? Okay. How do we bring merit, right? besides Kaddish, is there anything in particular, practically, what can we do in order to bring merit to a parent who has passed away? So the truth is, every mitzvah that we do reflects back upon a parent, but there are certain mitzvahs that I found that are emphasized in the Sfar. Okay? So first of all, number 18, this is the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. He says, Afal Pisha Amiras HaKadosh ve'atfilos me'ilas le'avos. That even though saying Kaddish and davening, that's all very, for the Amud, that's all very wonderful for a parent. Mikol makom ein elu ha'ikr. Kaddish is not the main thing. Getting up and davening, for the Amud is not the main thing. Ela ha'ikr hu shehabanim yelchu ba'orech mishor. The main thing is to raise children who walk in a holy, yashar way. Ki bazehim mizakim es ha'avos. That's what really brings merit to a parent. V'yesh lo la'adam letzavos es banav lahachzik be'ezeh mitzvah. And a parent should teach a child, whether explicitly or maybe subconsciously through what they focused on as a parent, to hold on to a particular mitzvah. Maybe what they found to be so precious. And I think that's a beautiful way to honor a parent, not just in words and not just, but to hold on to the mitzvahs that they found, that they loved so much more than any other. That's more, that's greater. If you fulfill that mitzvah, those mitzvahs, it's greater than the Kaddish. Takana tova, gamla misha ilo banim elo banot. Okay, that's also takana. Even in certain communities where women wouldn't say Kaddish, so they had no child to say Kaddish, right? So what? He says what's better than Kaddish is to follow and to live in the path of the parent. And so I thought that was very beautiful. Then I found the Chafetz Chaim. He says also so incredibly beautiful, and I think what happened here tonight is a fulfillment of the Chafetz Chaim. So he says, Agav Ra'iti, this is just, he has amazing things in his Sefer, just he'll throw in, his beautiful insights. He says, Yesh anashim sherotzim la'atzot yad vashem. There are people who want to memorialize a parent, v'zecher olam al nishmat avoteim, v'osim lahem matzeva shel even shayish yikara. So they make a very fancy, beautiful marble gravestone. Mufutacha pipituchei chotam otiot mezuhavot, right, with gold letters and all sorts of fancy things, and flowers and so on. He said, and some people plant beautiful gardens around all of that. Very beautiful. They spend a lot of money on this. And they think that this is the best way to bring nachas to the person who passed away. I understand it. It's very painful when you go to a family grave, if anyone's ever done this, and you find that your grandfather or grandmother's grave is overgrown, and it's hard to find, and you're there and you're ripping out grass. It's not so simple. It's a painful thing. But says the Chafetz Chaim, this is a mistake. This is a mistake. When a person leaves this world, when in the next world, the person only sees the truth and knows that Torah and mitzvah are what matters. Right, that's the most valuable merchandise. In those worlds. It's all of those mitzvahs that are done that bring a person great pleasure in the next world. More beautiful than all the golden memorials and all of those things is to do a mitzvah in this world. He talks about, this is the story of the Gra, we don't have to go through it, where a person, what they would do to have 5 minutes in this world, to be able to come to this world to do a mitzvah. So he skipped to the next paragraph. It says, Yotir tov hayalahem sheyasimu matzeva she'ina yikara. He says it's better to have a cheap gravestone, and instead the yetar hotzot, and save your money, shenoflin al zeh, the extra that's on top of that you have left over, liknot shas, v'litno leveis hamedrash, to buy a set of shas and to give it to the beis medrash. And to write on it that it's in the merit, right, of one's father, one's mother, right? Meaning, better to take the money that you have and to use it to increase Torah learning, which is what we're doing here tonight, establishing a place of Torah learning. Thank you for sending me on this journey to find just one beautiful Torah after another. And he goes on. Just so much to say here, but he says, "Be'emet al yidei kol mitzvah shehabeno said." This is the last paragraph. Mo'ila niftar. He says every mitzvah that a child does is a merit to the person who passed away, to their parent. Then he goes on, he says, not just learning Torah, but also chesed. Right, this is the sefer Abad Chesed. This is a sefer on chesed. And it's Torah learning, but it's also chesed. Because chesed is when we in a sense do something for someone that maybe they don't deserve. You don't owe it to them. There's no obligation technically, right? And that mitzvah in particular it brings chesed upon those that we love. So there's not so much time, but there's no question, right? As the Chavetz Chaim said, that Torah learning is a tremendous merit, and there are sources here. Maybe take it home. You know, it makes everybody feel good when you take the source sheet home. Right? You know, and that's a very beautiful thing. I have a source here I found about learning Mishnah in particular. Maybe just to say over quickly, you know, because I think we all wonder sometimes, why do we learn Mishnah? Why is it always Mishnah? So the answer everybody says is that it's otiyot neshama. Right? It's the same letters as soul. But is that just a cute idea? So I found this in a few different places that really it's much deeper than that. Because Mishnah is very different than Gemara. And Mishnah is only the very essence. Right? You don't get into all the details with the Gemara, like the Gemara does, right? You could go for daf after daf in Yevamos, you don't know what, one detail after another, you're trying to hold it together in your head, right? It's crazy, right? And all of that, it could be on, you know, 1 3-line Mishnah in Yevamos. That's it. The essence. You get the essence when it comes to Mishnah. When we're sitting in the Shiva house, and that's where it begins with the Mishnah, or 18 years later. Right? When we're looking back upon a person's life after they've left this world, we're not thinking about the details and all the stresses and all the moments, right? Where there's so many details. It's infinite details in a person's life. We think about the essence, right? The core teachings of their life, what they stood for, who they were, and the impact that they had upon us. And that's Mishnah, not Gemara. And so for that reason, we have a very holy minhag to learn Mishnah, Le'ilui Mishnas. Just skipping through, you know, very quickly. I'll just come back for a moment. I think maybe finish with just about finished with this. You know, to what the Chavetz Chaim said about Chesed. There was Rav Yitzchak Sher. I saw a beautiful story. It was the day of the yortzeit for his father. And he did not come to shul to say Kaddish. Sounds like a Rebbe story, right? Which is obviously a little bit strange. So the next day when people saw him, they asked him what had happened. And he explained that his wife was not feeling well that day. And so he had a mitzvah de'oraisa to fulfill, a biblical command, to bring his wife to the doctor and to be with her. And so he explained that Kaddish is a very nice thing to do. But the truth is, he said it was intended mainly for a young orphan, right, lo aleinu, to give them an opportunity to bring merit to a parent. But obviously, right, the far greater merit that I could bring to my father, he said, was to do a kindness for my wife. And you know, I think this story captures so much of what we're trying to do tonight, which is to change the way we look at honoring a parent after they leave this world. We become so fixated on Kaddish. And I think it's a mistake. Meaning it's wonderful in Chutz La'aretz where you can't get a minyan. I'm living in New Jersey. And so it's almost like, I know it's terrible, but like we depended upon, you know, a certain number of people passing away each year so that their children would come. It's crazy. It's completely, like we couldn't make a minyan otherwise. So I guess there is something to be said for Kaddish, right? I know many people have said that they became Bali Tshuva because of Kaddish. It brought them back to shul after many, many years. But the truth is that's like junior Yiddishkeit, right? When you come to the level of the Gedolim, and I have stories, the Chazon Ish, the same thing with one of his students who was said he couldn't go and do a chesed, couldn't help a friend who was sick because he had to say Kaddish, understandably, for his mother. And the Chazon Ish said, this is more important than Kaddish. One story after another. When we come to a more mature place, right, and here we are, you know, after all these years, we realize that it's not about the Kaddish. It's about living a life, right, that to be the legs of our parents. And I think that's what we're seeing here, right? How fortunate your father is to have a family that has taken on, right, everything that he stood for, to follow in his path, what a tremendous merit. And I'll finish with one last source, which is at the very end, which I think captures so much of what this family is living. It says in Maseches Machos, "Mechabdan b'chayehen mishum yira v'yerusha." Right? There's something, when we honor parents while they're alive, there's something that takes away always a little bit from it. It's one of the great mitzvahs of the Torah. It's one of the 10 Commandments. But there's always something there, right? Yira, you're a little bit afraid. I'm terrified of my father, right? He always said to me, like, he could be, 110 years old. He's like, if you put me in a nursing home, I'm going to climb out, I'm going to crawl out of there, I'm going to come and I'll kill you, right? Meaning I have a certain fear, right? I have a fear of my father. So there's there's an element of, I'm honoring, but it's also partially because I'm afraid. Or also, the Yerusha. Lo aleinu, right? We shouldn't, but it's a real thing in the world, right? If you honor your parents, maybe you'll get a good Yerusha. You'll have a bigger portion, the right portion that you wanted. So there's always something when a parent is still in this world that can, in a sense, takes away from the wholeness of the honor that we can give them. Hamechabdan b'mosam, but when we honor them after they pass away, ein mechabdan ela l'shem shamayim. It's completely l'shem shamayim. There's nothing else, right? There's nothing, right? They're not giving back to you in any explicit way. All of those factors go away, and it's purely the love of a child for a parent, and expressed through this unbelievably holy and this unbelievably kadosh kibbud av v'em after they leave this world. And so, with that, may each and every one of us be inspired by your Father to live lives of dedication to Klal Yisrael, of joy and inspiration, and we should all play video games with our kids and learn Torah with our kids, have fun with them, and to learn Torah with them, and all of it together, the complete package, lives of Torah mitzvahs, of chesed and community work, and God willing, you will continue, ad meya ve'esrim shana, all of this entire family for generations to come, to bring merit to your Father, and to be the legs for him here in this world.
Thank you so much. Yeah? Okay. There will be a Marav Minyan for those who need to say Kaddish and for those who don't. When I spoke to Rabbi Eli Michel and I asked him if he would be willing to continue his Monday night series, he said, "Wow, what an honor to be dedicating a shul part of a shul in Israel to your father." He said, it's not like a shul in Chutz La'aretz that one day could be turned into what was your word?
Korean church.
A Korean church. So maybe be zocha to not be a part of a process such as that. I'm thinking, I don't know how many more opportunities. 18 is really big, and I don't know how many more times I can ask all of you to come out in the cold. And thank you so much for your time. But there are so many nuggets of wisdom that just I feel like obliged to share with you. As Rabbi Michel just said, that sometimes in our parents' lifetime, we feel obligated to respect them, out of yira, which I can't imagine any of us ever felt towards my father. So you can attest, he was not a scary person. But in terms of the wanting Yerusha, it's interesting. He was an ish chinuch his whole life, and I remember, when I was single, and most of my friends had already gotten married, and he was talking to me one Friday night, and he said, is there some sort of common denominator, if you could think about it? Which of your friends have gotten married? And I said, I don't want to be cynical, but the rich ones really went quickly. And he said, wow. I'm really sorry that you had to be born the daughter of a poor man. And it was really, really hashkafa pratis, because was it on our first date that Avi said to me, I always knew I didn't want to marry a rich girl. Right? You said they come with high expectations. So apropos of what Ellie said, of what Michelle said, so may you all be zocha for that. And one more nugget of wisdom that I learned from my father, and I was actually recently telling Avi before Marav. We will get to Marav, I promise. So a lot of people talk about trying to encourage their daughters to naturally want to be inspired and enthusiastic about dressing in a tsanua way. And, my father and my mother came from the generation of the Talmidim of the Rav. They were really, really of the generation of modern orthodoxy. My father believed wholeheartedly in co-ed education. I remember hearing him defend it passionately on the phone. It will teach the boys to respect the girls if they learn together. I hope in many ways that has happened. And in terms of dress code, he was very flexible until he one day would say okay, that's a little too much, a little too short, a little too tight, And even with allowing us to go to parties, he would say, no mixed dancing, right? Because it may lead to mixed dancing. But he would say, you can go to the party, but because the majority of my grade, all of the bat mitzvahs and bar mitzvahs were mixed dancing, and he would say, you can go, but just promise me you won't mix dance. And in terms of tznius, I would say, the majority of fathers, you can debate me after, leave it to the mothers to educate their daughters. But my father didn't shy away from those awkward conversations. He would come up to us and put his arm around us and say, let's talk about it, I'm curious. And it was really from an open-minded perspective. And I really, really think that had a lasting influence, because daughters tend to argue with their mothers, and it's always a power struggle. But when your father comes to you and says, you're a daughter of Hashem. I want you to look like a daughter of Hashem, and you're important to me, and I value you, and I respect you. You wanted to live up to that. So I want to encourage all the fathers to not shy away from those awkward conversations. And I see my husband shivering. So with that, I invite everyone tomorrow. Thank you for coming.